You're listening to the Becoming Zesty podcast. We are Megan and Dr. Alex, and we're so happy that you're here.
We are passionate about accelerated transformation, yours, ours, and the collective.
Personal and professional for coaches, practitioners, and leaders of all kinds.
Between the two of us, we seem to have done things the painful way. So let our pitfalls become your stepping stones. We are not afraid to share our raw and vulnerable truths in order to help you transform your thinking, your body, your heart, and your soul.
Combining over 15 years of functional medicine with brain-based habit change to lead you to create the life of your dreams, supporting yourself through all four bodies, physical, mental, emotional, and energetic, every step of the way.
We are transformation accelerators, wholeness cultivators, empowerment experts, speakers, authors, mentors, and change makers for a more loving world. By combining Dr. Alex's MD experiences
with Megan's mindset magic, we've helped hundreds of thousands of people transform their lives, and we can help you too. If you're ready to accelerate your transformation and have so much fun doing it, then stick around. We've got you covered. Quick reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor, not this doctor, before making changes. Now let's get into today's episode. Hello, Dr. Alex here with you. So glad that you are joining us on the Becoming Zesty podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about the masculine and feminine principles again, which has been an ongoing series here on the podcast. And today, what I wanted to talk about specifically was about how the feminine can get more information on the masculine. And what I mean by that is that when we talk about these frameworks, now, I've had many episodes where we describe that feminine and masculine are energies, right? And so a very burly man can have feminine energy and a very, like the opposites are all true. So it's not about physicality and it's not about like gender, right? And especially when we have both masculine and feminine balances within ourselves, of course, we can see very clearly that can't be true, right? We need to account for the energetics of it more than the physicality of it. And still, when we look at statistically what is most common, then the way that it shakes out is that often women identify more with the feminine energy and men identify more with the masculine. Now, the way that I'm going to talk about this episode really is talking about that commonality, but please understand that no matter how your partnerships and things are set up, this all still applies. You may just need to think about it in a slightly different way, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? This is not the exclusion of where things can be flipped. It's more just for ease of talking about it, it gets really wordy and confusing. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it from that lens, and then we can dig into any specifics. And so here, when we are talking about this topic, we are beginning to talk about things that come up for partnerships often, especially between men and women. There is where the feminine then is seeking to get information about what's going on inside the masculine, because feminines, right, one of the hallmarks of femininity often is that the feminine is communicating in order to connect, and the masculine is communicating in order to impart and transfer information. However, I think for feminines, a common thing that comes up is that the information, if it's something action like, I'm going to go to the bank, the masculine will state that. But when it comes to internal thoughts and feelings, sometimes that's where the feminine feels like I'm asking and it's like, oh, it's fine, nothing's wrong, whatever. And there is this feeling of this communication is not deepening the connection, and now fill in the blank. And for some people, it's I'm worried this connection is threatened here with the lack of connection, or the lack of communication in the way that I feel it should be. Or this feels uncomfortable. Are you mad at me? Is there something going on? And so this is where sometimes masculine and feminines just have trouble communicating. And again, if you think of it in kind of the conventional, the bell curve kind of men and women, people make jokes about this all the time. And of course, again, that's not really what we're talking about here. But if that, for many people, it's just easier to think in that way. We've all seen, like, everybody loves Raymond. Well, maybe not. Depends on how old you are. But like, everybody loves Raymond on TV, and like King of Queens and whatever, like Family Matters. They're just interactions and jokes and whatever. And so it's kind of a standard thing where people are like, you get maybe a grunt out of your man or whatever, and there's a craving for more connection, or maybe questions open up like, why is this not being shared? Is there something that needs to be hidden? Is it about me? What's going on here? So the opportunity for mental gremlins to be invited in is often a source of negative emotions, right? If there's an opening for doubts and fear and things like that, sometimes you can't help that. That's just how it is. Kind of like the uncertainty of life. We don't know what's going to happen to us tomorrow. And some things aren't necessarily like that. So with this, feminines are often seeking internal information. And often what we, and I say we just because I personally relate to the feminine, but I should edit that. What the feminines, the way that feminines perceive that often is, I need to ask questions, I need to explain myself, I need to talk, I need to figure out what's going on, and then we can do something about that. And it is often kind of reported as a very frustrating feeling when that's actually not happening, when it feels like the attempts to understand what someone is going through, it feels frustrating when we think that someone could just tell us, but then they're not. And this creates a lot of problems in partnerships for people, and that's certainly been true for me as well. One of the things that has been very eye-opening as we together collectively as a company and then out in the world have studied masculine and feminine even more, and nowadays it's becoming more and more common to talk about it, is that the awareness, there's lots more ways to get information than speech. So for the feminine, one of the things that that feminines are often not taught to consider are the four bodies, right? There's just like any other human, most of us are not taught in that way. What are the thoughts? What are the emotions? What are the body sensations? And what is happening in the spiritual body? Well, fortunately, when we think of here, we can say that verbal communication is just one way then to get information about what's going on in the four bodies. But actually, the feminine, in the way that we've talked about what feminine energy is quite pervasive. Femininity can, just like water, fill in all the nooks and crannies, and often in a partnership and in a family unit, in a household, there is that permeation. That is why feminines are equipped quite robustly to notice on multiple planes. Female intuition is something that is talked about all the time in this regard. And even when men access their intuition heavily, there's a component of the feminine body being active there. And so the feminine energy. And so here we have the awareness of other sources of information, not just words, but there's information being transmitted in other ways if we learn to pay attention to these cues and really begin to take it as information, we can have a lot more awareness around our masculine and how to navigate it, how to support a masculine, how to work with a masculine, how to navigate difficulties, how to support a masculine, how to uplift a masculine, all those things that we want to do in high quality partnerships. I am also popping in to share a bit about our sponsors, Needed, as in thisisneeded.com. If you follow the link in the show notes, you'll be able to check out their products and get 20% off with the code ZESTY. But about them, so Needed is a company that was created and thought of by two women, so like Megan and I, and we relate a lot to their story of looking around and realizing things like, oh my gosh, there's so many people, especially women, reproductive age, who are on things like multivitamins and prenatals and stuff, and yet when we do testing, 97% of people, and this is across literature, have nutrient deficiencies. Why is the formulation like this? Why is this happening? What is occurring? And more importantly, what can we do about it? And that question is what they answered with products that have been researched to be formulated with the forms and the amounts and the quantities of things that can be utilized by the body in an efficient manner, in a way that actually gets to the end result without causing problems along the way. And so that's what they were looking at. And so we really, really appreciate their products. They have everything from a multi to a probiotic options, and even a men's line. And specifically, if you are reproductive age-ish, as in you know you want kids, or you have kids, or have grown multiple and are recovering, any and all of those people will find the line very, very applicable to them. But even if that's not you, they absolutely have products. So check those out. We're super grateful for the sponsors. We've been using the products ourselves as well, and we're really, really loving them. So back to the show. And so what is that thing that we're talking about here? Well, it's actually listening and cultivating an awareness of a masculine's physical body. So let's break that down. What does that actually look like? Well, masculines, because most of the communication that is to transmit information that is involved in action and decision making, that's where the words will flow, but then therefore bodies will need to express information in other avenues, since verbally isn't as much on the table. That means that for many masculines, the physical body expresses a lot of that. The physical body actually will be another significant source of information about the internal landscape of a masculine. So what are some of the things that we're talking about here? What is eligible to be looked at? What does listening to a masculine's body mean? And what that actually means, these are things like, what makes his body tense up? What makes him relax, right? What kind of things that are happening out in the world, or the conversations being had, what makes his body become more relaxed? When does he get sleepy? When does the hunger come? What topics are you talking about where over time, consistently, when the topic starts, he's up moving around and maybe starts cleaning or doing dishes or moving a pile of papers from one pile to the next, right? When you are in bed and maybe you're cuddling or something, what things happen that lower his heart rate and slow down his breathing? All of these things. Now, one snapshot doesn't really tell us all that much all the time. sometimes we see really significant things that we can sort of pin and say, okay, I see that right now. But in a lot of cases, it's not really all that clear. And that is why time is so helpful, because patterns over time, that's how they get verified. And there's more data points, so you can be more sure. So over time, as we begin to watch masculines, their physical body is sharing a lot of that information. The eyebrows, where the gaze is. Is it focused? Is the focus of the eyes kind of glassed over? What's happening in the face? Is the face tight? Are the lips small, or do they look relaxed and more full? Of course, this is from their baseline. This is masculines that you may be interacting with that you know, and you know well, and you are reading and getting information essentially from their physical body. That is a way that people communicate. Body language is an important part of human interactions, and it's actually more so than in percentages. It's a lot more than the content of someone's words. If that's something like less than 10%, then tone and body language get you up to a very, very high percentage in the 90s. And so that's what fills in a lot. So what is that, and how does that get modified within the masculine as he transverses the world, presumably with you? And so and again, flip this, if you're listening and you're a masculine, then flip it around, and this is information that can be talked about, can be pointed out. This is something that really, if we're all wanting to increase our self-awareness and our awareness of the people we love so that we can show up as lovingly and as supportively as we can, then liberating this portion of information that is just right there available. There's nothing actually that the other person has to do. The masculine in this just lives and exists. The feminine, the way that the feminine permeates her world, is then a lot of this information can be used to, when this is the topic that makes him nervously move around the male, and we see that time and time again, where's the support that we can provide? How can we nurture this wound in them? How can we alleviate the pressure of an insecurity, or maybe a self-doubt or a lack of faith in the moment, right? How can we use this information to be more of service? And of course, this is a two-way street, but in this particular one, we're really talking about the feminine getting info in order to do something with it. And this is where, when we feel like, well, gosh, why do I need to do all of that? You don't. But part of truly living a life, especially when it's something like a marriage partnership and you're seeking deep connection, then this is the kind of thing where we get to use the information to expand and make the relationship way, way deeper, way more intimate, way more successful, way more feel good, way more collaborative, right? So this isn't an obligation. This is not work that we have to do. And in fact, the feminine almost picks up the information without much effort. It's more of cultivating the awareness. What is this telling me? Translating it to a conscious thought for the feminine that can be usable. It can be acted on. It can be, oh, this is happening. This is pointing to some sort of wounding inside. I know that in the past, touch on the back, maybe a little running the hand up and down the back, relaxes the body, allows the muscles of the face to relax. So in this conversation that I know may be vulnerable and triggering and is connected to a wound, I can then apply the soothing things that I have learned over time about the masculine and what their body is expressing to me. And I can be so much more intentional about my expression of love. I can be more intentional about my support. And I don't need to ask a bunch of questions. I don't need to get specific answers. I don't need to have them be something that they're not, right? This is completely independent of any actions from the masculine that answer questions about the information. This is something that feminines can do entirely on their own. And the more data points we gather, the more effective this kind of approach towards partnership of masculine and feminine becomes. And the feel goodness of the connection and the depth of intimacy that is created then is often what people are really looking for. So when we desire to do this, it's really awesome. When we don't, when we have gotten to a place in partnership where it's like, this just seems like too much work, of course, that gives us a lot of information to work with as well. So no matter where we are in the spectrum of this process and in life, we can still utilize the information in this discussion to tell us more about where we're going, how we want to do that, and how we feel about it. So lots of good stuff. And anytime we find stuff like this, it's awesome because lots of information will always lead us to more resources, to more answers, more solutions, and finding more like-minded people and fun things like that. So that is it for today's podcast episode. Happy information gathering, no matter where you find yourself. And I'm sending you lots and lots of love.
Thanks for coming to hang out with us on the podcast. It is our goal to lead others through accelerated transformation that takes all parts of ourselves into account. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. At almost 2 million downloads and quickly heading to 3, we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more and more people and help them learn how all 4 bodies, physical, mental, emotional, and energetic, work so they feel empowered to be, do, and have whatever they want in life.
If you find this podcast helpful, please take a moment to text 5 friends you think might benefit and leave us a review. It means so much to share this work that has transformed our lives with others. We appreciate your help so much and can't wait to see you next time.